Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
Welcome to today's show. This is your host, Alan Bourgeois, and I have with me two ladies who are a partnership in writing books. First, we're going to start off with Terri Goodman. Hello, Terri.
Hello there.
Tell us a little bit about you and how you ended up being a partner with Joy.
Well, our partnership was based on Joy Don's dream of writing a series of novels called The Nurseketeers. She shared that idea with me years ago, and a couple of years ago, we agreed to make it happen. We're both nurses, and I have been doing nursing education forever. Joy Don will give her story, but we've been friends for a long, long time.
Great. And so the partner is Joy Don, and Joy Don, it's an interesting name, and I'll ask about that in a moment, but let's hear a little bit about you and how you got into this, and what created that dream sequence.
Well, basically, I think both of us wanted to write, and we were avid readers. We read lots of fiction to offset the reading that we do that's for work. We enjoy the opportunity to write. We're both writers in professional journals and things like that. So the writing opportunity was something that we wanted to do more for fun. And the wake-up call gave us that opportunity, and we just explored the opportunity for our Nurseketeers to come to fruition.
All right, so explain a little bit more about the Nurseketeers, because apparently that was some type of dream sequence or something that you had going on?
Well, actually, I went to the movies and while I was seated there, 4 women came in, and those 4 women seated down below me became notes in a journal that I had with me. And I was just taking copious notes and decided that those people were nurses. I have no clue who they were. And we simply took that and began to develop 4 nursing students going to school in the 1970s. So that became the group that we labeled as the Nurseketeers, and from that developed the novel.
And let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the novel. It is the wake-up call. So give us a brief rundown of what the story is, and let's have Terri, let's get you into this.
Well, the wake-up call is the first of the series. We began the series when the Nurseketeers began nursing school in 1970. And the first book focuses on the character named Franny. And because nursing school doesn't really start until the junior year, there's not a lot of nursing background in the first book. It's more of a coming of age, a young, upscale, intelligent young lady who breezed through high school, takes a long time in her first year of college to discover that college is different from high school and she needs to be significantly more responsible. So it's her adventures or her misadventures during her first year that take up most of the first book, her wake-up call.
So, okay, Joy, so now I'm curious about the aspect that since it's a series and you just covered only 1 year, does that mean each year is going to be a different book?
That's correct. We thought initially we would jump about 5 years, but we decided that we couldn't cover all of the misadventures of Franny and her cohorts in 1 year. So we made 4 books each successive years in college. And it also, at the same time, it did something else that we were interested in doing. That was giving a sense about what it is to become a nurse, and the books will do that. These are coming of age books, so our our characters are going through some life crises as they advance through this. Now, Franny, of course, she has difficulty making life decisions, basically. And as she moves forward, she has to make some that could affect her life in a long-term standpoint. Her roommates begin to sometimes challenge her, sometimes support her, and at the same time, they provide a framework in which the Nurseketeers begin to develop.
I have no doubt they challenge her. I mean, all roommates challenge people, so that's not a surprise there. But I'm sure it's also beyond the roommate situation, schoolwork and all that other stuff. You mentioned earlier that there was 4 ladies that sat in front of you in the theater, and they became your characters. So how do the other 3 play into this?
They actually wound up being suite mates in that freshman year, and one of them is from Chicago, one is from Philadelphia, one is from New Orleans, or the New Orleans area, and one is from Oklahoma. So none of them are from Dallas, which is where the school is located. And we created the school, which is pure fiction. Crestmont University does not exist in Dallas, and we actually needed some place to transplant it. So we looked at the map. We had to kind of get a sense of it because we were writing separately, and we needed to be able to get a sense of where the footprint of this was. So we placed the footprint of an existing school on a graveyard in Dallas to be able to set the stage for our students that were going to be a part of this book.
So Terri, since there are 4 characters, did you guys divide up who was going to create which characters?
Actually, we created the characters together, and it was a meticulous process, and it didn't happen all at once. We had the framework from Joy Dawn's notes, and she had named these individuals color names based on what they were wearing at the time. And we developed them slowly but surely and turned them into people we know. Our 4 characters are very real to us. They have very rich lives in terms of families and histories, experiences, characteristics, features, and we're hoping that that familiarity that we have with these 4 young ladies will translate into making them very real to the people we hope will follow our series.
When she says real, she does not mean that these are real people.
Right.
This is truly fictional characters that we've created.
Right, but you can feel their true essence and relate to them and stuff. Which then actually brings up the question, since you've already answered it, but I'm going to touch base anyways. A lot of the nurses you guys have known over the years and stuff, I mean, you've been able to find those little characteristics and add them into these people?
Well, it's sort of a mixture of things. We did a character sheet and created the characteristics of these individuals, put their birth dates with it, what their favorite colors were, so that we actually had a foundation for each of us to be able to write separately and then come back together with something that was based on a similar content that we both had together. Without that, I don't know that we could write separately, and it was easier to do it by being able to do that. And we truly did separate. We learned a lot when we were first writing, because our first chapter we threw out and wound up, because it was backstory. And as all of us know, that's not what you want to read. But it did give us a major help in trying to sort through writing style. We write differently. We needed to be able to come together and make some decisions early on about how we would handle our writing.
And we're going to talk about some of that in the second section of the show, because you have a book that relates to that. But I want to ask you this question. With the atmosphere in today's world, specifically for women to be empowered and to be whatever they want, granted, you guys are nurses, and that's where most of your knowledge base is. But was there a reason you chose for them to remain as nurses and not maybe doctors or something of that nature?
Well, they may become doctors, but a doctor doesn't necessarily mean a physician. And our characters are about nursing, and nursing is actually about caring about people. Nurses are also the #1 on the highest level of truth and honesty that gets reported annually. The firemen pushed up just a little bit ahead of us in 9/11, but right now nurses remain at that point. And so we want to be able to put forward the career of nursing, what it means, and definitely not the surrounding the concept of the doctors. This has nothing to do with a negative of pro or con physicians, but this is a story about nurses. It's not about physicians and their training. It's about nurses and what nurses give to patients.
And Terri, you laughed there too, so you have something to add to that?
No, I was remembering something you said. You asked if we had incorporated characteristics of people we know into the existing characters, and interestingly, we did not. As we developed the characters, we identified character traits that differentiate people from one another and tried to identify 4 people with very different backgrounds and very different strengths and weaknesses so that we would have 4 different people to write about and the challenges to the interactions among them and their view of nursing, what they're looking for in life. One of the things that I firmly believe in is that nursing, the career of nursing, the profession of nursing, can be adapted to absolutely anyone's personality, anyone's desires for what they have to do or want to do with their lives. I believe they can do very effectively as a nurse. And we're going to be able to explore that through 4 very different young ladies.
Okay. Now, you have the first book out. When are you guys planning on having the second book out?
Before the end of the year. We, Against the World is the title of the second one, and it is actually going to be Franny's roommate that is the main character in that one. She will experience some issues of her own sexuality and her questioning her own sexuality, as well as some family violence issues. So we're actually looking at some significant thematic components as we work through this series of books, as well as a coming of age type of framework that we're basing this on.
And about how long did it take you to write each of these 2 books?
Takes us about 3 months once we get our mind down to it.
Great. Well, this is a perfect spot for us to stop. When we come back, we'll talk about the new book you have just come out. But we'll let the sponsors do their thing, and we'll be right back.
Tom Gromes, father of market intelligence, writing business books that are a game changer. International author of nonfiction, has written the first and only books on the collapse of Russia and the first and only book on market intelligence. Check them out at mkintel.org. That's mkintel.org, mkintel.org.
Love to read? Love to meet authors in person? Then check out bookfestival.network to find a book festival in your region of Texas. We are adding book festival events throughout the year, so sign up to get notices and even a coupon towards purchase of a Texas author's book. Sign up at bookfestival.network.
What would you do if you had to put your life on hold to parent your parents? You have to laugh to keep from crying. How to Parent Your Parents is a must-read book full of antidotes and practical advice to help parenting your parents. Author Charlotte Kenyon provides insights to help prepare anyone facing the challenges of caring for elderly parents. Check out our website at www.howtoparentyourparents.net.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
And welcome back. This is your host, Alan Bourgeois. This is the Indie Beacon Radio, and we have with us Terri Goodman and Jo Dawn Baker, who are a team of authors that work together to create not only a series of books, but their new book, which, if I remember correctly, is titled, it's so new, it's just come out, that's how new it is. It is the ABC, and yes, there's Joy holding it, of author partnering. Now, since they are partners in writing these books, it seems only logical that through their experiences, they were able to write this book. Correct me if I'm wrong, Joy Dawn, is that what motivated this book?
Actually, it is. We are, like we said before, we're both very avid readers, and we were working to try to get our hands on anything that would help us establish how to work together as a partner for writing. And the key elements that we were not finding in anything, we could find how to write, we could find how to edit, we could find even how to publish, but we were not finding how to work together as partners in this process. We could go to business partnering, but we couldn't find it about the author component and why something particularly was important with author partnering. And that's why we wrote the book, just to share that with somebody else.
And I do happen to know of another team of writers that do not live together, that actually have a spreadsheet for all their books they write, and the characters and the storylines and all that stuff. But they email back and forth, paragraphs or chapters or whatever. Is that something similar to what you do, or how do you and Terri actually do your things?
Yes, we basically use Dropbox for our location for sharing data. We do have a spreadsheet in which we use our scene development and track a word count. We also, we have committed in some ways to writing the initial draft of whatever each of us is assigned, posting that, the other one will read it. There is a little bit of back and forth, but we move on so that we can move forward in getting the document accomplished. We really have learned to work to not edit as we go forward. We make major issue changes. So for example, if we decide a whole chapter needs to shift to another place, we can do that without having to disrupt our flow of writing.
And Terri, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, at the very beginning, one of the things that we established was a routine. Wednesday is Joy Dawn Day in my life. Everybody I work with knows that. Wednesdays are Joy Dawn days, because when we're actively writing or developing, we actually get together. I'll drive to Fort Worth and we spend the day together, because we find that we develop best when we can play off one another. But once we're established, we have our assignments, we're writing, moving forward with writing, we meet on Zoom once a week without fail. And then we touch base with each other pretty much every day. But it is a joint effort, and we're very much committed to one another. And the book, the author partnering, details the things that we learned that are very, very important to making our partnership successful. And we really feel that sharing that with others can short circuit a lot of fumbling around, because working together is not a slam dunk.
No, it's not. And actually, I've been working on a program called We Fiction, which is a competition for authors to team up together and to write a book. And we're looking at 3 to 4 authors writing one book. That in itself, I'm sure, is a lot of challenges just for the two of you. And to multiply it out by 4, that's going to be more of a challenge. Any words of advice from either of you for somebody who's considering partnering up with somebody else?
Yes, get it in writing first. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a formal contract. The contract pieces can be very informal to formal, but more than a handshake. And the reason that I say that is because when there's a question, you can always go back to that. You know, some kind of negotiation could be on the back of a napkin, but it needs to be something that all the parties agree to. So when you're talking about 4 parties, who's going to write what, when do you have to check in? What is the author sequence? Is something that probably needs to be established early on. Author order more than sequence, but those can get really sticky if they're not explored early on before any of the writing takes place. So it's not a matter of legal ease that we're talking about. It's a matter of making sure that all parties are communicating and that we're on track with what we're doing.
Right. And actually, we should talk about the legalese from either one of your perspectives. Did you guys actually form a company as a partnership?
Yes.
About it.
We went down to the courthouse, got a doing business as name, which is Baker and Goodman with the ampersand. And then we started keeping track of books and things like that, because you actually do have some accounting to do. You have some records, yes. All of that information has to be tracked. And then when you go into a partnership, that's a little different than a corporation. So you've got to manage that from from something very different. I've written articles with other people before for journal articles based on some project that we've done, a research study or something like that. The concept applies whether or not you've even developed into a partnership. With a book, is there going to be revenue? Is it going to have a particular audience? Do you want it to be disseminated beyond family? So what is the purpose of the book? And that needs to be in there as well, and then how you can manage that. So I think having some kind of agreement language is important so that all of the parties are okay. A couple of other caveats that might be explored, and that is what happens when someone doesn't deliver. If you think about that in advance, then, you know, some of the things can be prevented. Life does happen, and when that occurs, how is the group going to focus on that? A couple of things that Terri and I have agreed to is that there's 2 pieces that are very important to us. One is our families, and for us, families come first. We both are employed outside of writing, so we also have a work environment that we must attend to, and trying to make sure that we stay in touch with what those priorities are in our lives and be okay with the other partner attending to those kinds of things. But we both have to commit, like Terri said, Wednesday's our day. And so when you begin to make it known to other people that you're not available on Wednesdays, they begin to respect that as well. And
Terri, do you have
some of the stuff?
I'm sorry, Terri, do you have anything to add?
Well, when Joy Don said it helps to deal with a lot of the identify things up front, she mentioned of the order of authoring. Is it Baker and Goodman, Goodman and Baker? You need to agree upon that. You need to feel good about it, make a decision for a good reason and move on. And those things known up front make it much more easy, make it much easier to make decisions, to get things done. Who's going to take care of what? We do have a business. When you write, if you're not doing absolutely everything like interior design and graphic artistry and so forth, you have to deal with other people. Who's going to be the voice of the partnership? Because you need consistency, you need to build relationships. And we decided all of those things in the development phase. So moving forward for us is easy. We have most of our questions answered before the opportunities to answer them come up.
Great. Well, we're going to have to take a short break, let our sponsors once again do their thing, and we'll be right back.
What would you do if you found out everyone on the town council were thieves and murderers? That's what happened in Bandera, Texas in 1873. John Cruder was the marshal, yet he needed to operate outside the law in order to balance the scales of justice. He is the Midnight Marauder. You can find his books on Amazon.com and TopWesterns.com in paperback, digital, and audio. I'm Roy Clinton, and I hope you'll read The Midnight Marauder.
Indie Lector is a store for serious readers and indie authors. Find great talent at indielector.store and save money on books with their book club. A portion of the proceeds helps get books into schools and libraries in need. Find a great book to read by an indie author at indielector.store.
Hi, Brakefield and Berkey here, award-winning authors for the Techno Thrillers books, the Enigma book series. Technology, today's weapon of choice, the cyber good guys versus the cyber bad guys.
We invite you to join our website, theenigmaseries.com, where you will get sample chapters, sample audibles, book trailers, and you can sign up for our mailing list. The books are available in ebook, paperback, and audible. Thank you.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. This is your host, B. Alan Bourgeois. We have with us Terri Goodman and Joy Dawn Baker, who are an author team who have written several books. First one was The Wake Up Call, which is a fictional story about 4 ladies who are going into the School of Nursing, and the series will follow them. Their second edition, Joy Dawn, what was the name of the second book?
A, B, and C's of Author Partner.
I'm sorry, of the nursing.
Oh, this is series Against the World.
Okay, and that should be out by the end of the year. Their newest book, which is ABCs of Author Partnering, has just come out this last week. Well, depending on when you've seen the show, it was mid-March of 2019. So you've got a lot on your plate, ladies, and you mentioned family is very important and stuff. Before we go too far, I would like for people to know how to find either you as a group or you as individuals. So if they have questions or want to find your books, who, what, where, all that good stuff.
BakerGoodman.com is our website. And we also have a Facebook account, JT Baker Goodman. And so our names are how you find us for the most part.
Okay. And
On Amazon.
Terri, you guys on social media other than Facebook?
Well, we have our books on Amazon, and we tried to use our Facebook page. Joy Dawn manages the Facebook page. One of the decisions that we made early on, because all of this is very new to us, was that we would tackle one medium at a time and manage it well, and when it was under control, move on to the next. So we've concentrated for this year on our Facebook page without going to other social media. And we've implemented a blog on our website. So little by little, we're reaching out. And as we become known, people make suggestions. It helps us grow.
Great. And with 2 books in the series pretty much wrapping up, or at least the second one due to wrap up soon, and you've got 2 more in that series to go, and you've written the ABCs, do you have anything else that you guys are planning or working on for the future?
Are you kidding?
I'm sorry.
Actually, the Nurseketeer series could extend beyond the 4 books. We know that we'll have 4 because we'll have 1 for each character. But beyond that, we could take them to the full life of their lives and explore how they move into their own family lives and explore any kind of direction that we could choose to go. That's all open. It's not written, and it's all subject to change at this moment.
And to that, you may actually have one of those characters become a PA or ultimately a doctor or something, or change.
Well, I would not have them change from nursing. They may become a nurse practitioner. They could become a doctorate of nursing. They could get their PhD. So those are certainly extenuating outcomes that they could pursue. We're not going to have any of them go into medicine. They chose nursing. We chose nursing. We didn't choose medicine. So we're pretty emphatic about that.
That's understandable. Terri, out of curiosity, since you guys have created these 4 characters, a lot of authors hear these characters talk to them in their brains and want their stories told and stuff. Do you feel that at any time?
It surprises me how they become real to us. I was going to say we get into our characters, but I didn't really mean that. As we discuss them and decide what's going to happen and how situations are going to involve, it's very real. I mean, we can imagine it happening, and we're very much involved in the development of the storyline. There isn't any, at least for me, or I don't think for Joy Don either so far, a preconceived mission. There isn't a story that's burning to be told. The story has really evolved as the characters have evolved.
Okay. Joy Don, I'm curious, this is still somewhat new for you guys. You're roughly 2 years into it. Do you have any words of advice for anyone, whether it be a partnership or a single author who's wanting to write a book?
Yes. Get in with some kind of a group, writing groups, join your group, become active in some kind of initiatives, attend any conference that you can where others are writing. They become both a support and someone sometimes to challenge you. But it's the information, and we have some place here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that we attend. And we've joined the writers group in Austin and attend some of those conferences. Essentially, it's don't be isolated, because we all need some kind of supports, help, just like you did in Austin with the activities in the table down there. So there's a variety of things that have to happen, and people need those kinds of connections to be able to not feel so isolated.
Great. Terri, do you have anything you want to add?
I was going to, in my head, I just said, when you said, what would you tell people? Get started. Because once you've started, it's not that difficult to keep the enthusiasm growing for writing. My friends who would like to write, the ones that talk to me about how impressed they are that we're actually writing books, just haven't done it. They could sit down and get started, and it becomes self-motivating. It's an exciting thing to do.
Well, that's a perfect place to end the show. I thank you very much, ladies, for being with us, and we look forward to seeing the books out there. I know I'll be buying the ABCs of author partnerships just so I can have it available to other people who want to partner up and stuff. Thank you very much, ladies, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website at indiebeacon.com.